Hello everyone, it's me Jenny and welcome to my D&D miniseries part 3 and it's going to be a D&D and me where I talk about my games. So I've had 2 sessions since I last talked to you guys. One of them was, again, really, we're really breaking into the NPC stuff and into the character and RP stuff for this series, this little mini session that we're part of. And I feel I'm really embarrassed, but I'm also really happy because by default, when I've made my characters, I've made 3 full D&D characters who I've played for a couple of weeks each, a couple of months each. That has been Nayla, who was my elven cleric, Maylee, my halfling bard, and Tisa, who is my current half-elf ranger, druid, multiclassed. Awesome. And for each of those I've done a full page of backstory, just by default, like full detailed, like family heritage, friends, allies, enemies, all those things. Like, you know, you have it on your character sheet as a guideline. And I wrote out that full page of details. I had where they grew up, what they did as a kid, what they do now, where their job is. And with Nayla, I had a whole thing about like her family and her, you know, tragic past and where she learnt her sword skills, which it turns out she didn't because I forgot to take into account that swords aren't really dex-based. They weren't finesse. I miswrote something, so basically she didn't know how to use a sword properly. But I did explain how she might have learned to do a sword in part of her backstory. Again, with Maylee, I explained her family history and why she's out on the road doing what she's doing, and, you know, they have very different characters. And again, with Tisa, I did a full backstory, and I sent it to my DM, just as I do, because, you know, I send him my backstory, and he really took that backstory and pretty much the whole 3rd arc of this campaign that he's running. Apparently he ran out of ideas, and used a lot of my character backstory in order to actually, like, we've had, I think, 3 sessions more or less based on my character backstory and like the things that I put into that character backstory, which is really exciting. It's so fun. Like, I've been able to interact with my NPCs from my character sheet, and I love to hate them. I love to hate them so much. It's so cool. It's like improv theatre, and it's really the first time I've done that sort of thing, like actually talking to these characters and actually having them respond, and trying so hard to intimidate them and rolling horribly on my intimidation checks. So they're not scared of me, and I really like them to be. And then I used, there's a house rule additional ability that I used because it's such a short campaign with such a lot of plot, that I can use this house rule ability to just get me double dex bonus. And I used it to shoot an arrow, and I intimidated them just a little bit. But yeah, I'm so excited to have that because it's really cool to me. It's so awesome being able to interact with NPCs and do that whole improv theatre and getting into the head of my character and trying to, you know, do those things. But it's also, I kind of feel bad for hogging the screen time, as it were. And I know it's kind of difficult for me to talk about this and actually make it interesting because obviously I'm not showing it to you, but basically, I wrote into my backstory that my character was a thief growing up, and a heist went wrong, and in exchange for the rest of the team's freedom, my character was sold into slavery, pretty much, which she escaped from and, you know, ran from the woods and became a ranger, like you do. And she's grown up hating the guy who was going to take her into slavery, and she's grown up hating the 3 guys who originally put her into that situation. And it turns out, like, I love collaborative storytelling. It's so cool because it turns out one of those 3 people that she's hated for, I think it's been 10 or 7 years since the events of the story from my timeline that I wrote for her character. It's been about 7 years since this happened, and it turns out one of the 3 who she's been hating for 7 years actually tried to save her and tried to help her escape and actually helped her escape and then was killed for it. And she's been hating this character for 7 years, and it turns out that she actually tried to save her. And oh my god, it's so cool. It's so cool. Oh my god. Anyway, excitement aside, Have any of you who've played D&D written a character story that has then been incorporated into the RP aspects, into the plot as a huge part of your arc? And how does it feel interacting with NPCs that you've created while you're not being the DM yourself? Because it's so cool. It's so cool. And yeah, has there been like character development of characters that I've created from someone else? It's so weird and so amazing. But have you ever had a similar experience if you played D&D? Yeah, feel free to comment, and I'll see you guys all very soon. Bye.